Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into some really fascinating stuff happening right now at the intersection of AI and, well, a bunch of different areas, actually.
Yeah, it's like we've got these three seemingly separate things that we're going to look at.
Right.
But by the end, I think you'll see how they all connect in some pretty surprising ways.
Exactly. So we're going to be looking at some new developments with how Meta is using facial recognition. We've also got some really interesting stuff on Bitcoin's connection to renewable energy, A&D, its role in AI. And finally, we'll wrap things up by looking at what Gary Gensler, who's the chair of the SEC, thinks about regulating all this AI stuff in the financial markets.
You ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay. So first up, Meta. Now they're planning to use facial recognition in two pretty big ways.
Okay.
One is to fight those super annoying celebrity endorsement scams that always seem to be popping up in ads.
Oh, yeah. Those are the worst.
I know, right?
Like you click on something and it's like, this celebrity endorsed this product. And you're like, no, they didn't.
Exactly. And the second way they're using it is to help people get back into their accounts if they get locked out.
Okay. That makes sense.
And here's the really crazy part. The AI they're using for all this is crazy fast. Like we're talking catching fake ads before you or I ever even see them. And like getting you back into your account in like 60 seconds.
That's incredible. When you think about it, that speed is kind of essential for a company like Meta. I mean, they have like 3.3 billion users.
It's mind-boggling.
Right. That's almost half the planet. There's just no way human beings could possibly keep up with all the ads and account requests and everything else that's going on. So AI is kind of essential here. But there's also this whole other layer to this, right?
Totally.
Meta has this kind of controversial history with facial recognition. They've been hit with privacy lawsuits. People get nervous about them having that data. So the big question is, can they actually pull this off?
Yeah, can they thread that needle?
Right. Can they make this work without setting off a whole new wave of backlash? It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
For sure. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that, on the surface, seems totally different Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Now, I have to admit, when I was doing the research for this one, I was totally surprised by what I learned. It turns out that Bitcoin might actually have a role to play in the clean energy transition A&D in meeting the insane energy demands of AI applications.
Yeah, I know, right? Who would have thought?
It's crazy.
Like, Bitcoin is usually in the news for being an energy hog.
Totally.
But now it might be part of the solution. That's wild.
Yeah. So how does this whole Bitcoin energy thing even work?
Okay, so...
Well, it seems like Bitcoin mining can actually help to stabilize energy grids because miners can act like this really flexible energy consumer.
That's right.
They can basically draw power when there's a surplus on the grid.
Yeah, like when there's more energy being generated than is needed.
Exactly. And then they can power down when demand peaks.
Huh.
Like during a heat wave, for example, when everyone's cranking up their AC.
Makes sense.
And this is where it gets really interesting because AI is super energy hungry.
Oh, absolutely.
But it also often has pretty flexible energy needs.
Right.
So Bitcoin mining might actually be able to support that growth in a sustainable way.
It's like this perfect match.
Totally.
You've got this energy-intensive technology, Bitcoin mining,
Right.
that can help balance out the grid. And then you've got AI, which also needs a ton of energy, but can be flexible about when it uses it.
It's like a match made in heaven.
It really is. And when you consider the fact that the world is moving towards cleaner energy sources, but at the same time, AI is only going to need more and more power, it's like Bitcoin, which has gotten so much flack for its energy use, could actually be part of the solution. It's mind-blowing, right?
Absolutely. It's like this totally unexpected hero in the energy story.
Yeah. Okay. Are you ready to tackle our final deep dive for today? This one takes us into the world of finance.
Hit me with it.
All right, so Gary Gensler, the chair of the SEC, has been talking a lot lately about some pretty serious concerns he has about AI's potential risks in the financial system.
I've heard a bit about this.
Yeah, and he uses this analogy that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine if AI suddenly went offline. Like, poof, it's gone.
Whoa.
Everything just grinds to a halt.
Like in that movie, Her, with Scarlett Johansson.
Yes, exactly.
I love that movie.
So Gensler is basically worried that if a really important AI model, a model that banks and investment firms and everyone relies on to make trading decisions,
right.
If that model were to malfunction or get shut down, it could trigger this massive chain reaction.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly. And that could crash the entire financial system.
It's kind of a scary thought.
It is.
What's interesting to me, though, is how this connects back to what we were just talking about with Meta.
I see what you mean.
both companies are wrestling with this fundamental question of how to harness this incredibly powerful technology, AI,
Right.
without being completely blindsided by the potential downsides.
It's like this tightrope walk,
It really is.
trying to balance the benefits with the risks.
Totally.
Hmm?
So where does Gensler stand on regulating crypto, especially given all this talk about the risks of AI in finance?
That's a great question. So he actually thinks that crypto can fit within existing financial laws, but he's really, really big on the need for transparency
Okay.
and making sure that investors are protected.
That makes sense.
And we're seeing that play out right now.
Yeah.
The SEC is cracking down on crypto companies left and right.
It's like a game of whack-a-mole.
It kind of is, but it also feels like everyone is kind of holding their breath,
I know what you mean.
waiting for some clear legislation to come down the pike.
Yeah, it feels like there's so much uncertainty in the air.
Definitely. And all that uncertainty is making the markets really jittery.
Makes sense.
Gensler also brought up private credit markets as a potential area of concern.
Interesting.
These markets aren't as transparent or regulated as traditional markets.
Right.
And with all these new ETFs and things that bundle these assets together,
Yeah.
it could get messy really fast if there's a sudden economic downturn.
Oh, definitely. Retail investors could get hit hard.
Exactly. It's something to keep an eye on for sure.
So we've got facial recognition expanding Bitcoin, potentially becoming this green energy player, and AI pushing the limits of financial regulation. It's hard to know where to even start.
Uh-huh. I know what you mean. It is a lot to take in. But that's what I love about these deep dives.
Me too.
It's so fascinating to see how all these seemingly separate trends are actually interconnected.
Right. Like something that seems like a minor change in one area,
Yeah.
like AI getting faster, can actually have these massive ripple effects across entire industries and even on our daily lives.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that we need to be paying attention to the bigger picture and not just getting caught up in the shiny new tech toys.
So true. So out of all of this, what's the one thing that's really stuck with you? Like what's got you thinking?
That's a good question. For me, it's that question about how comfortable we are with the trade-offs we're making.
Yeah,
AI is becoming more and more embedded in our lives.
it's everywhere.
Right. From our social media feeds to our financial decisions, and the convenience it offers is undeniable.
It's so easy.
Right. But at what cost? Are we giving up too much control over our data? Are we losing something essential about human connection and decision-making? It's not an easy question to answer, but it's one we all need to grapple with as we move further into this AI-powered future.
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of new technology,
Right.
but we have to be mindful of the potential consequences too.
Exactly. So for everyone listening, as you go about your day, think about where AI is already present in your life.
Yeah.
And how you feel about its expanding role.
Are you excited? Apprehensive? Somewhere in between.
Let's keep this conversation going.
I love it. And that brings us to the end of part 1 of our deep dive into all things AI. We'll be back soon with part 2, where we'll be taking a closer look at the world of semiconductors and the chip wars that are heating up.
Stay tuned. It's going to be a wild ride.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
See ya.
All right, so we've covered a ton of ground already. Meta, Bitcoin, AI regulation. And, you know, I'm starting to think we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, there's so much more to unpack.
But in our research, there was this whole other thread that kind of jumped out at me. It's about ARM.
AR.
Yeah. The company that designs those chips
Right.
that power pretty much every smartphone and tablet and a bunch of other devices.
You're like the unsung heroes of the tech world.
Seriously.
Yep.
Most people have no idea how much they rely on ARM technology every single day.
It's true. Their chips are everywhere.
Everywhere. And what's really interesting is how they've been shifting their business model.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more.
So they used to be all about licensing their chip designs to anyone who wanted them.
Okay.
But now they're getting way more strategic and focusing on specific industries,
Like what kind of industry?
like automotive data centers,
Makes sense.
the places where AI is going to be huge.
Yeah, that's a smart move. They're already in such a dominant position. Like I said, their chips are everywhere. So by focusing on the areas where the growth is going to be explosive, they're setting themselves up to be the power behind the AI revolution.
It's like they're betting big on AI to be the next big wave.
Exactly. And, their partnership with NVIDIA.
NVIDIA.
Yeah, the company that makes those super powerful graphics cards that are used for AI and gaming and all sorts of things.
Right.
That partnership is a pretty clear signal that ARM is all in on this AI thing.
It's a powerful alliance, for sure.
For sure.
Oh, and you know what else I found really
What's
interesting?
that?
There was this comment that ARM CEO Rene Haas made that kind of stuck with me. He was talking about how much power TSMC has.
TSMC?
Yeah, that giant chip manufacturer in Taiwan.
Oh, yeah, right.
And he seemed a little worried about the risks of having so much of the world's chip
Oh,
production
yeah.
concentrated in one place.
Yeah. I mean, especially with all the geopolitical tension these days, it's definitely something to think about.
Right. It feels like
Mhm.
semiconductors are becoming this strategic asset,
Cool.
kind of like oil used to be.
It's kind of like we're in a new Cold War.
Whoa.
But instead of nuclear weapons, it's all about who controls the chips.
The chip wars.
Exactly. And that's why we're seeing governments all over the world pouring tons of money into building up their own domestic chip-making capabilities.
It's like a global arms race, but for chips.
It is. The U.S. CHIPS Act is a perfect example of that.
So it feels like we're on the cusp of a major shift in the tech landscape. AI is driving this incredible demand for computing power.
Yeah.
And the companies that control the chips are going to have a lot of leverage.
For sure. And it's not just about who can make the most powerful chips anymore.
Right.
It's about who can secure a stable and reliable supply chain,
Okay.
who can build relationships with those key partners,
Makes sense.
and who can navigate this super complex geopolitical landscape.
It's like a giant game of Risk,
Yeah, kind of.
playing out on a global scale, but with chips instead of armies.
Exactly. But the stakes are just as high. I mean, the future of technology and maybe even the global balance of power
Wow.
hinges on who wins these chip wars.
Okay, so we've covered so much in this deep dive, from facial recognition and Bitcoin to AI regulation and the future of chips. It's been a wild ride.
It really has.
But now as we start to wrap things up, what's the one big takeaway you think our listeners should walk away with?
You know, for me, it all comes down to this. We are living through a period of truly revolutionary technological change.
It's mind-blowing.
It really is. And all of these seemingly separate developments, AI, crypto, the chip wars, they're all interconnected in ways that we're only just beginning to understand.
Yeah, it's like pulling on one thread and realizing it's connected to everything else.
Exactly. And what might seem like a small change in one area, like AI getting faster, can have massive ripple effects across entire industries and even on our daily lives.
It can feel overwhelming at times.
Yeah.
Like, how do we even keep up with all of this?
It is a lot. There's no doubt about that. But I think the most important thing is to stay curious, keep learning, and never stop asking questions.
Curiosity is key.
Absolutely. The more we understand about how these technologies work and how they're impacting the world around us, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the future.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
We're not just passive observers in all of this.
Right.
We have a role to play in shaping how these technologies are developed and used.
Absolutely.
We have to stay informed, engage in these conversations, and make our voices heard.
Well said. And remember, this deep dive is just a starting point.
Yeah, just a taste.
Exactly. There's a whole world of information out there waiting to be explored. So keep learning, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep diving deep.
I love that. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time.